it's not regular stream day. We all know what happened on regular stream day. I'm going to wait till I see some highs. Okay. Messi is the best soccer player. You know, I don't know anything about soccer, so that means that I agree with whoever says something first. Drizzle, thank you for coming back. Why is it like, is it flashing for you guys too? I don't know what could, oh, it's the fan. Okay. Hello. Okay. First of all, I'm alive. A lot of you sent me, you know, kind wishes to get better, and I appreciate that. So, yeah, the last 48 hours have been terrible. Literally, when I got off here, my moderator knows, like as soon as it went, like as soon as it got off, I literally like fell on the bed, and then I told my moderator, I'm like, I gotta go throw up. And from that moment on, it was like what, maybe like seven something till like 7 a.m. the next morning. It was just a shit show. I did end up having to go I didn't have to, but like I just, because I couldn't keep anything down, getting some fluids in my body and stuff, which did help me out. And then yesterday I was feeling a little bit better. All I really was having was like Gatorade and saltine crackers, and I did even throw that up. But today we're good. Yeah, what happened on Tuesdays, I got food poisoning from this. Okay, so I don't know if you guys have this where you're. I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona, and we have a place called Flower Child, which is really good. And I eat like from there multiple times a week. And I got the salmon, and I have their salmon all the time. But I think the disher like took a while to bring it, and they delivered it. And I think like by the time I went and got it, because I saw the notification on my text and I didn't think about it, like it was sitting outside for a little bit, and it's really hot here. So I think it went bad. And I knew when I was eating it, I was like, something's off. Like I usually want to finish the whole thing, but I was like eating it and I'm like, why does my stomach like not want me to finish this? I was like, you know, whatever. I ate like 3/4 of it, put it in the fridge, and then we all saw what happened. So that was that. That was my story. I'm feeling much better. Still not 100%. I think the biggest thing now is I'm just constantly hot. Like I'm usually somebody like I like my home like to be really warm, like 79, 80, which people think I'm crazy. I have it at like 60 right now, and I'm still like, so you know, just stuff like that. But I'm fully capable of finishing this live. But I will say I realized how much I actually work, because when I had to be out of commission for even like a day and a half, you guys have no idea the amount of like backlog I have with OnlyFans and messages and just a lot of stuff. You should do rewards for Twitch. I should. Well, you got to be careful eating fish in the hot sun. Yep, learn my lesson. I actually never want to eat fish again. I'm good. I'm soft. Today's trash day. And I like literally like with gloves, like took the salmon and like tossed it in the trash. I had the trash out. Well, tomorrow morning is trash day. So I put it out at like, and yeah, guys, my shirt, I was doing my makeup with, I always do my makeup first and then put a shirt on, but I just had this on already, and like doing powder and everything, it's like all over my shirt. Okay. Anyways, I like had the trash out, and I get this salmon out of here. Never want salmon again. I'm going to stick to like goldfish and like anything that like can't go bad. I'm done. That was my one and only food poisoning stint. Like I've never had it. I think I had it when I was like 8 or 9 in some foreign country with my parents, but like, I don't really remember. And I'm not somebody that like eats a lot of like obscure food. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not somebody that like will see a random food truck or like a food cart and be like, oh, let me try that. Like, so I've been pretty safe so far. Food poisoning is miserable. Yeah, I know. And I'm going to be honest, like I thought I was going to die at some point. Like, and I don't get sick very often. So every time I do get sick, I am dramatic, but I genuinely thought I was going to die. I like called my parents crying, my sister crying. She's the one who actually had to call to get me over to get help. I was like, nobody has experienced this kind of suffering. I was like, I don't care. The soldiers who stormed Normandy, like nobody has experienced this. And then it's funny because every time I'm telling people about it, they're like, oh yeah. And they all relate because a lot of people have had food poisoning. But I'm like, oh my God, you guys have all experienced that? I'm currently in the same boat. You're currently having food poisoning? Well, I hope, like you're not watching this live. You should go feel better. Just up to the special website. Hope you like it. I can't go live there today. I'm going to go live there Saturday. We have our monthly time right now, so it wouldn't be a good time to go live. But Saturday will be in the clear, and we will go live on Saturday and then on Monday as well. So like you'll get the live made up. Also, I did put a little promo in for missing the live. So if you're on my page, you can go check that out. So yeah, no special live today after this, but I did want to come back on and do this stream because I didn't want to miss this and then do it on Monday and miss like a different topic for Monday because there's just so many good topics right now. I want to do the Supreme Court ethics stuff. I want to do a lot of stuff. So I didn't want to miss this stream. And I was really, I loved the conversation that was going on. Don't you hate when ant floats around? Not that much usually because, I'm on the pill and the pill kind of makes it very like easy and go, but with the food poisoning, I thought I was in labor. Like I was getting the tightest, like craziest cramps. Oh my God. I was shivering, like throwing up. Like I was just like such a baby. I was like, Mom. Hi, babe. Can you stand up so we can see what you're wearing? No, because I'm not wearing pants, and this is not the place for that. If you want to see me without pants on, you know where to go. Wait, King of the Hunt, are you actually experiencing that? You know what, King of the Hunt? Like, if you're still on my live, when you're experiencing that, you might be my favorite person. That is unprecedented support. Thank you. I'm all better now, guys. I was a bit dramatic. Worse things have happened to people in human history. Okay, so I'm going to do a little recap of what we talked about last time and then continue the conversation just in case people here haven't. I'm going to pimple. Okay, anyways, people here weren't here last week. And then also I hope we didn't save last week's replay because I don't want that me like dying to be on the internet. So for anyone who's watching the replay, because a ton of people actually watch after, we can have, they'll be up to speed. So we were talking about, yes, I am. I've been fighting it for a few days. I'm so sorry. What did you eat? Hang on. Did I hear you say when you were sick, you thought you'd be in labor or something? No. I was saying that I got such bad, like cramps, but they feel like menstrual cramps, which if you're a guy, you wouldn't know what they feel like. And I don't know if you've had food poisoning and you felt it, but I felt like really strong. It felt like menstrual cramps, but like very, very intense, more intense than I've ever felt while I had food poisoning. So, and talking to other women, at least, it seems like they've had the same thing. I don't know about y'all though, or if you would even be familiar with the sensation. While the replay shouldn't be posted, I kind of hope it's still up because a lot of good conversations going up. I know, but we're gonna continue the conversation today. And if we have to go a little bit over today too, that's fine because I don't have another live to run to. So, okay. We talked about, we looked at the text of the Second Amendment, which I'm going to pull up again. And we were going through kind of what the Supreme Court or what the interpretation of the Second Amendment has been since it's been, since we've had it. So we talked about, let me read it first. So what does the Second Amendment say? A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So I'm going to read that again. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Do I have a Discord? We have a like little group Discord. I don't know if Hazard's in here. I've been so busy. I haven't been able to check in with him, but yeah, Hazard's in it, Drizzle's in it, King of the Hunt is in it, I think. But if you want to be in it, you can be in it. But if you're like, it's going to be a lot of stuff like this. Nobody's putting nudes in the Discord. I never got the link for the Discord. Okay, moderator, can you make sure King of the Hunt gets it? Because we definitely want him in there. I haven't seen Hazard. Yeah, I don't know. Hopefully he makes it. But, let's see. Okay. The moderator said he sent it to you, but he'll send it again. So make sure you check your messages on Twitch. I didn't know how to do that before either, but like nobody even messages me, so it was fine. Like I've seen like 3 people message me. Okay. I'm not like a big Twitch streamer, guys. I'm no video gamer or whatever is really popular on here. But I do want to do a okay, sorry, give me 1 second. One second, sorry, this is important. Okay. So yeah, if you guys want to be added to the group, which now I just feel like I want to feel part of this group. Yeah, JC Fresh, you're good to go. There's certain people that aren't good to go. We all know who they are, but you know, React content is definitely the biggest category on Twitch right now. You know what? I can start doing that. And I actually did a film session maybe like a week ago reacting to a bunch of TikToks and stuff. So hopefully, and it's going to be a YouTube video we're going to do. It's going to be me reacting to Red Pill TikToks. And so hopefully that'll be up soon. And I want to do more reaction content because I actually like it. And a lot of you seem to like the YouTube video I did reacting to Abigail Shapiro, Ben Shapiro's sister. So I do like doing that stuff. All right. Back on topic. So that is the text of the Second Amendment. So we talked about how when the Second Amendment was brought about, it wasn't at all about an individual right to bear arms. So it wasn't about, you know, your right to have a gun. It was about there was the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, and the big tension between the two groups was that about whether basically they didn't want the government, the federal government, to have too much power over the states. So there was this tension over how much the states could be independent of the federal government and to make sure that the federal government didn't have too much power. That was some people still think that's like a huge fear of theirs, but at the time it was a much more prominent fear for those that really wanted the states to be as independent as possible. And they saw that to be essential to freedom and the freedom of people in America. So that was the Second Amendment was created basically as a way for states to be able to protect themselves against the overuse of power by the federal government. It was not about individual right to bear arms. And that's probably why it says well-regulated militia. So we went over some really, really early cases, and I'm just going to go over them really quickly again. So I think the first one we talked about was United States versus Kroll. I don't know how to say this. And this is not a case that was super important, because you know, when I did con law, I'm trying to focus more on the state ones that were really important. There was also another one. What was it? Something versus Illinois, which was explicitly overruled later by McDonald's. So that's why I didn't focus on it much either. And it kind of just reinforced what the one I'm about to talk about did, which was basically, I don't know if we went through the facts last time. I don't know. I don't want to get too like law schooly where it's like facts, procedural posture. Like I don't want to do all that. So let's see. Okay, Presser v. Illinois. That's the case. So it kind of had the same black letter law conclusion as the one I'm going to talk about now, and it was explicitly overruled later. So by McDonald, which is a huge case. So I definitely want to talk about that one. Can't wait for it on YouTube. Thank you. Yeah, the Anti-Federalists tried their method first with the Articles of Confederation. That was scrapped for the Constitution. Yeah. So if you're interested in this stuff, I mean, there's a lot of information. This was like my least favorite thing to learn in law school. I think I explained this last time. I like learning about different methods of interpretation of the Constitution. And I talked about how, you know, a lot of people right now, it's kind of ironic because a lot of the originalists, which a lot of times more conservative judges have an originalist interpretation of the Constitution, which basically means they try to keep it as close to what the founding fathers intended. So they do that by looking at the four corners of the document, which is the Constitution, and then looking at extrinsic factors, which is whatever we know about the time, committee hearing, whatever. Federalist Papers is the big one, to know what their actual intent was. And it's interesting because we know that their actual intent was actually not related to an individual right to bear arms, and it was more so related to the right for a state to have a well-regulated militia in case the federal government was overstepping its boundaries. So let's see. Using a firearm cannot ever be safe for everyone at all because, for example, a man comes by an alley and tries to defend yourself from a criminal, and the man tries to get his weapon out, shot in the foot while he tries to use it. I would not use a gun for any reason. Yeah, the whole good guys with guns thing, I'm not convinced with that argument, but hey. Con law is one of my strongest subjects along with crim. You know what my strongest subjects were actually... Like, I actually got an A in con law, but I'll tell you why. The reason I got an A in con law is because the teacher sucked. The teacher sucked. And anytime the teacher sucked, I did really well in the class because I was lazy, but I'm very naturally gifted when it comes to standardized tests and being book smart. So the classes where the teacher was very, very good, and it was very clear what you needed to study for the exam, and you could go to office hours and you could have your questions answered, and the kids that do that would do really well. So for my 1L year, that was like torts. Even though torts is a generally way easier subject than con law, it's also easier for everybody, right? And so I actually remember my con law professor, oh God, and I sat in the back, and he was like ancient. He was just a terrible professor, very talented in his career and everything. I can't say who it is because I don't want you guys to know my law school, because somebody, no, I don't think any of the people here, but somebody could be a psycho. And so the final exam came along, and we could have a copy of the Constitution. That's all we could have, was a copy of actually, I think we could have our outlines, whatever. Anyways, there was a question about a part of the Constitution. And I remember being like, I don't even recall him like even talking about this. I didn't study this. Like, fuck, I'm screwed because I have no recollection on this part of the Constitution. And I just looked through the Constitution, I found the section, and I just did my best. I winged it. Left the room and heard everyone pissed. They're like, we never went over that. We never learned about that. So I was like, oh. And then I got an A because basically we were on the same level because nobody else could have studied for that. So that's why I got an A in con law. Also why I got an A in contract. So my best subjects were dependent on how good the professor was. And if the professor sucked and people couldn't be well prepared, because I was never well prepared, I excelled. Anyways, plus those militias were raised to push out indigenous people from their lands. Yes, very good point. Very, very good point. That is not often discussed kind of anywhere. But that is also a very unfortunate and very real reason that was added in there. My professor said my understanding and interpretation of con law is what he feels is closest to what the framers would realistically have wanted in this age. So when you say in this age, are you saying like my personal, if I was a Supreme Court judge, I would take what the Constitution says and the principle behind it and apply it to modern times. I wouldn't be looking at how the framers would have seen things then and try to make our life as similar to, you know what, I just think that doesn't make sense. But then again, yeah, with a modernist view. Okay, so you have the same opinion as me on judicial jurisprudence. Okay, so anyways, sorry. So where's my little notes? Yeah, so this was in 1875, and it was the first case to deal with the Second Amendment. The Supreme Court held that the Second Amendment does not bar state regulation of firearms. So the court stated that the Second Amendment has no other effect than to restrict the powers of the national government. While the Cruikshank, again, I don't know how to say this name, ruling primarily functioned as a way to disarm African-American residents while protecting white Southern paramilitary groups, and only addresses the Second Amendment in passing, it remains frequently cited when answering questions on the function and scope of the Second Amendment. Okay, so basically what this case said, and I think what Presser v. Illinois also cemented, was that the Second Amendment only applies to the federal government's ability to regulate firearms. So it doesn't bar states' ability to regulate firearms. So for those of you that don't know, the Bill of Rights did not automatically apply to the states. That was done through incorporation, which, you know, took some time and all that. But at this time, that was not the case. So just because it says, you know, the state shall not, you know, you bar the right to bear arms, that was talking about the federal government only. So under this ruling, if a state wanted to say you can't have any guns and it went to the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court would say, well, the state can do that. That has nothing to do with this. This only applies to the federal government. Jasmine, what would you do if you had a firearm? I would probably never use it unless my life depended on it. Yes. Thank you. I'm glad you're back. We're just doing a little recap of the cases I talked about last time. So that was that. And then we had Presser v. Illinois, which I said was kind of like the same thing. I'm actually going to double check that really quick because I want to make sure there wasn't anything extra. Yeah. Basically, that's what it said. And that one was overruled anyway. But the one I'm going to talk about now, United States v. Miller, which is a huge one, was never explicitly overruled. It was just added on. So the Supreme Court, a lot of times, they like, I don't know, they just like to be vague. They like to be vague motherfuckers because they don't want to explicitly overrule themselves later. So in Miller v. United States, we talked about how the case involved the firearms, some act where it was basically regulating interstate commerce, and it went up to this. I actually want to know the facts of this, and I know I said it last time, but for some reason I'm blinking, so I'm going to look it up. Why it even went to the court. Unless somebody knows. Mr. King of the Hunt, give us the facts. I'm going to cold call you. Give us the facts of the case. Don't you love when you get cold called for the fact section? Because that's the easiest. I'm like, okay, I'll tell you the facts. Let's see. Oh, you guys, I'm so hot still and my room is really cold. Okay, so the National Firearms Act. I don't even think the facts were that interesting. Yes, exactly. The National Firearms Act of 1934 is what was brought into question, and the court upheld it. So the court said that the Second Amendment does not guarantee an individual right to keep and bear arms, and that the main purpose of the Second Amendment is, again, what we talked about before, in order to facilitate a well-regulated militia. Oh yeah, this is what I was like, there's something big I'm forgetting. It was about what kind of gun is this? You guys were trying to educate me on this last time. I said it then, and I want to say it again. I'm very uneducated when it comes to the intricacies of guns and what they do and what one shoots how and blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm very stupid about that. That's probably why I'm more comfortable starting with the interpretation of the Second Amendment. My moderator says cold call him while he's fighting for his life on the toilet. I totally forgot, King of the Hunt, that you have food poisoning. Never mind. I'm going to not cold call you. Sawed-off shotgun. Okay. Yeah, the sawed-off shotgun. So the court held that the obvious purpose of the Second Amendment was to assure the continuation and render possible the effectiveness of the state militia, and the amendment must be interpreted and applied with the end in view. Essentially, the focus of the Second Amendment was to protect the rights of the states to form militias, not the rights of individuals to own guns, and that the protections of the Second Amendment must be understood within the context of militia service. However, okay, so let's stop there. So basically, the court kind of reiterated, kind of piggybacking off of the cases that we've talked about, but being a little more clear that, okay, the purpose of the Second Amendment was this. And so any kind of decision we make on the Second Amendment has to be viewed with this end goal in sight, which is that the reason for this is a well-regulated militia. However, and this is kind of when, and again, this was 1939. So I'm mentioning that because the next significant gun case happens a lot later. It's cool. I will relish being right and dying at the same time. A true law student, a true law student, a true gunner. Gunners are what we call those kids, which there are a lot of in law school. So, however, the Supreme Court hinted that an individual right may exist in the context of a common obligation to possess arms and to cooperate in the work of defense, and that a sawed-off shotgun, the firearm at issue in the case, was unprotected because it had no reasonable relationship to the preservation or efficiency of a well-regulated militia. This implied that all free men could possess weapons of the type used for militia service, but the court halted this argument by insisting that only those guns usable in militia service and held for the purpose of militia service were protected by the Second Amendment. So basically, they use the reasonable test, which a lot of areas in law use, which is vague, but it's also like there's not a better option. And it's basically so the court was saying that basically the purpose of the Second Amendment is for this purpose of a well-regulated militia. However, that extends to an individual being able to bear arms that they could use in order to enforce said militia. But it has to be weapons that are reasonable for that purpose. And in this case, a sawed-off shotgun is not reasonable for that. I remember I read the whole case at the time, and this was like 2000, like probably 18, 19. No fucking idea. But I do remember the court going through why this particular weapon was not reasonable. And I probably skimmed it because I did not give a fuck. Also, at the time of the Second Amendment, there wasn't a giant standing federal military, so the state militias were relied on for first line of defense. And yes. Damn, Drizzle should be teaching history and or con law. I have a funny story about, I didn't go to University of Chicago, but Obama went to used to teach con law at University of Chicago, and the attorney that used to work with me went there, and he was actually taught by Obama. And can I request a song? I think you're on the wrong stream. I have no musical talent at all. Is there any reason to use a 1882 long rifle for any home defense? I could not tell you, but if anyone else in the chat who is more familiar with guns wants to answer that, go for it. Now, that was the last case for a long time. However, there was some legislation passed, which I'm going to pull up my moderator's notes because he did a really good job talking about this in between, and we'll talk about the different bills that Congress passed, and then we'll get to Heller, which is the next big, huge gun case that kind of started changing at least the Supreme Court's interpretation, which therefore becomes all of our imposed interpretation of the Second Amendment. So I know he has this in here. Yes. Okay, so U.S. v. Miller ruled that the Second Amendment only applied to standard military equipment. So then we had the Gun Control Act of 1968, which regulated interstate commerce for guns. So a lot of times the federal government's ability to regulate interstate commerce is one of the strongest rights that they have. So they will usually use policy as much as they can to regulate that area and hope that it also extends into the states where they're not as sure that they have that level of power. Might be going to the ER. Let's see where this goes. Oh my God. Keep tweeting. We're going to call this tweeting. Give us updates. Camera stuttering, or is it just me? Sorry. I think it's my fan that's like spinning and it's blocking the ring lights right there to give you guys a little light because there's not a lot of light in this room. So I think that's why it's doing that. If it's really annoying, I could get up and turn it off. But I'm like having hot flashes still from my my food poisoning stint. So I'm like have the AC running. I have that running. Let me know if it's annoying you guys though, because I will just make it colder and turn that off. Hang in there. Yeah. It's fine. Didn't mean to. Oh no, you're fine. I love to have you guys in here in the chat, like discussing this shit with me. So, Then we had, yes, so you must have a federal firearms license to sell across state lines. No license needed for gun sales made within a state, though. It's kind of freezing for me too, but the voice. Oh, so the camera is freezing, or are you guys talking about this like flickering? I hope it's freezing on flattering angles of me. Okay. I'm gonna wait till you guys tell me whether or not. Not that I would know what the fuck to do if it was freezing. Like, honestly, we would have to deal with it. The cam has been freezing a little, but it's been okay the last few minutes. Okay. I guess I have to chalk that up to my Wi-Fi. It's fine. Okay. Bold of you to assume you have unflattering angles. Oh, I do. This is my good side. That's why I always have my hair. I don't really like this side as much. I feel like I'm very asymmetrical. I don't know if you guys feel that way too. Okay. Where were we? Okay, so then there was the Firearms Owners Protection Act of 1986, eliminated the sale and manufacture of new machine guns. But if you had one prior to 1986, when the act was passed, then you were fine. You could legally own and sell it under the National Firearms Act. Then we had the infamous assault weapons ban of 1994. Reagan, Ford, and Carter wrote a joint letter to Congress urging support for a ban on the domestic manufacturing of the military-style assault weapons. Technically, though, an AR-15, which I guess was from what I remember, and I'm not sure on this, this was when some type of, like, I know we have a mass shooting every other day now, but at the time, sorry, I have there's something important going on, so I keep getting texts about it. But at the time, it wasn't as common, so I don't remember which shooting it was, but the shooter used okay, was it Columbine? Somebody, yeah, a rare Reagan W. I admit, this is a rare Reagan W. You guys want to know the funniest story ever? So my dad is like a foreign man from Iran, and he moved here probably during the Reagan era, and he just like didn't care about Reagan. Like he's not a big politics person. He always asks us who to vote for, and we tell him, and then he just does it, which I'm fine with. But randomly, I think it's just the nostalgia for him. Like last year, we went to my sister's graduation. She's in California, and he's like, I really want to go to the Reagan Library. And we're like, okay. So we take him there, and he's like, you would think he's like the biggest Reagan fan in the world. Like he doesn't even know anything about Reagan's policies or anything. Like, but he was just stopping at every single artifact, taking pictures. We're like, what is going on? It was hilarious. Can somebody confirm if it was Columbine? I'm just curious. What made, what kind of caused this? Yeah. We were like, Dad, do you even like, what policy of his did you like? Did you even like him? And he's like, not really. I'm like, what? I think it's just, I think when somebody dies and somebody's like just a historical figure, like, I don't know. It was 2 shootings. Okay. It wasn't Columbine, but it was 2 shootings. Okay. I wasn't sure which shooting it was, but apparently at least one of them, if not both. The shooter used an AR-15. So I think that was kind of what, but the ironic part was the assault weapons ban of 1994 didn't apply to AR-15s because technically AR-15s does not count as an assault weapon after 1986 because it's semi-automatic. And you guys are going to really have to bear with me here. I have very limited gun knowledge, and so the difference, the intricacies, and what counts, I have like a very basic understanding of semi-automatic versus automatic. So please, any information you can give me in the chat, or if I say something incorrectly, which is a high possibility, please correct me because, like I said, I'm just not well versed on gun details. In 1989, a shooter killed 34 people with an AK. Is that the one? 34. Holy shit. Columbine happened in 1999. I was in 8th when that happened. I was 4. And in 1993, the 101 California street shooting. Okay. How crazy will it be when, generations from now where they're like, the 2021, like, blah, 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 the Uvalde, like, there's going to be so many. Your tits go crazy for real. Yep. Let's put that up on the screen. Why not? Just in case people, and just in case someone comes on this chat and they don't know what's under here, 8th grade. Okay. So I'm just going to read what my moderator has word for word. And I think I understand it, but if I don't, I'll ask you guys. You guys teach me just as much as I teach you. I'm not, licensed to teach anybody anything. This is a discussion. So also ban large capacity ammunition feeding devices or anything that holds more than 10 rounds. So this was lifted in 2004 due to, because it had a sunset provision. And for those of you that don't know, a lot of, and this was a big thing for me in the area of law that I practice, because we were coming up on something that was supposed to sunset, a law that was supposed to sunset in 2025. And we don't know. You never know what's going to happen, because it's basically an expiration date for that law. And then it's up to Congress to decide whether they want to renew it, whether they want to change it. Because usually the provision, so in this case, it would have just expired. In the case I'm talking about, it would have just, the number would have changed, and that would have made a big difference. So it was hard to plan, and you never know. So, in 2004, it had a sunset provision built in. And in 2004, it looked like they didn't, from my understanding, they just didn't do anything. So if they didn't do anything, then basically it just expired and it was no longer intact. So you can have automatic rifles, which are rifles that shoot more than one bullet when the trigger is held down. Okay, I get that. But, you can't have that. But you can have a bump stock. So bump stock is what I'm not so sure on, but it's something that makes the trigger move back and forth so that your stationary finger is pulling it every time. This is essentially a jailbreak to make a semi-auto weapon full auto, and it is legal. So it's something that somebody explain this to me. So instead of having to push it a bunch of times, if you put this in it, it does it for you, which basically makes it an automatic weapon, right? Somebody, you need a new webcam for real. Actually, this is like a better one than the one I was using literally up to last week, but you're right. When you're right, you're right. Okay. Well, that's stupid. If all you need is a bump stock to essentially go around the law. Then we had the Brady Bill of 1993, which created a list of criteria that would remove eligibility to own a gun. Number 1, convicted of any crime punishable by over a year in prison. 2, is a fugitive from justice. 3, is an unlawful user of or is addicted to any controlled substance. 4, has been deemed to be a mental defective or was committed to an institution. My moderator put in parentheses, mental defective. That one didn't age well. I was going to say, is an illegal alien or is in the U.S. unlawfully, has been dishonorably discharged from the armed forces, has renounced their U.S. citizenship, currently has a restraining order by a domestic partner or family member, has been convicted of any domestic violence crime, which that part was added in 1996. The original bill was passed in 1993. It requires federal fire, what's FFL? You put FFL, I don't know. Sellers to complete background check on gun purchasers. But there is not an FFL requirement for gun sales within a state at gun shows, so no background checks required. So this is the gun show loophole that everybody talks about. The bump stock moves the trigger while the finger is kept in place. Therefore, it is a way around. Yeah, so if it's really that simple to get around it, like I had no idea. I remember talking about it in class too, and I was dozing off. Federal firearms license. Okay. I was like, it's like at the tip of my brain. Maybe you're thinking of the OKC bombing. I think that happens around that time. I'm not sure, but federal firearms license. Clearly, I should not be the one leading this discussion, but here we are. Okay, DCV Heller. This is 2008. Finally, stuff that I feel like I have a good grip on. So remember, Miller was in what year? It was like it was around 70 years before the Supreme Court looked at the interpretation of the Second Amendment again. So then we have a DCV Miller, 2008. So this kind of changed the tone, I would say, like to put it lightly, of the Supreme Court when it comes to the interpretation of the Second Amendment. So this had to do, oh my God, where are the facts? I had it on a different page. Let me find my facts, guys. I know it had to do with I think it was Chicago. Yes, or no. Was that McDonald? No, that was McDonald. What was DCV Heller? King of the Hunt from the ER. Tell us the facts here. Sorry, I have these notes. I had them in a older thing from 2 days ago, and now it's like all jumbled up on my phone. V. Heller. We are going to see the facts. The facts of the case. Put me in, coach. I'll teach the class. DCV Heller, give me the facts. All right, here we go. Yes, this was the special police officer. Okay, it was the one I was thinking of. But it wasn't the Chicago one. That one's going to be McDonald. So DCV Heller and McDonald are probably the two biggest cases that are now kind of precedent that we kind of have to look at, or what judges are going to have to look at when interpreting Second Amendment regulation. But again, a lot of what we're pushing for now is legislation by the government, not so much. Yeah, obviously it can't be anything. Like if the government was to come out and be like, Congress was to be like, we're banning all guns, that would not work. And we're going to tell you why from DCV Heller, but that doesn't mean that there isn't a lot that Congress can pass that would still be within the bounds of protecting the Second Amendment. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to do a discussion, guys. I see why teachers are always like, okay, what do you think? So like they can pass it off. Interesting that this case came in 2008, 2 years after George W. appointed his 2 justices. Good point. Interesting. I honestly, it was so funny. Yesterday, I went to get my lashes done on my deathbed, and the owner came in and he was like, because he knows what I do. He's like, how's business? I was like, it's really good, but I had food poisoning yesterday and I couldn't finish my stream. And he's like, oh, were you streaming on OnlyFans? I was like, no, I was streaming on Twitch. And he's like, oh, were you playing video games? I was like, no, I was discussing the Second Amendment. He's like, wouldn't that go over your fans' heads? And I'm like, you don't know my fans, okay? Because there is like, the stuff they say goes over my head, okay? I got all the intellectual baddies on my OnlyFans page. So definitely was underestimating y'all. Got to make sure the lashes on point in case you do pass. My lash girl is only there on Wednesdays, so I was like, if I miss it, I have to wait. I was like, we're gonna go. I was like, I didn't eat anything before. I'm like, I can't throw up if I don't eat anything. I mean, the worst that can happen is dry heave, which I was doing, but not while I was there. Gotta look good in a casket. People always said like, because I had my nails for the bar exam like this, and people are like, you're not gonna get rid of your nails from the bar exam. I'm like, if I'm gonna fail, I'm gonna fail with some pretty ass nails. Okay, I passed. First time. Okay. So facts of the case. This is just from Oyas, but Quimby was the best. King of the Hunt. Anyone in law school, if you're going into law school, if you're in law school, a Quimby subscription is 100% worth it. I pretty much lived off Quimby. After 1L year where I didn't feel like I needed to read the cases as much, reading the case for me meant Quimbying the case. Anyways, just a little plug for any, because I know a lot of prospective law students follow me and ask me for advice. I don't know necessarily on here, but I get DMs all the time, which again, I find I love that people find me probably because they're like horny. And then they're like, oh, by the way, I'm going to law school. Any tips? I'm like, yes. I'm still mad my law school hasn't called me to speak to the 1Ls. Kind of salty, but we'll let it go. I am probably the single highest earner of our graduating class. No big deal. Okay. Provisions of the District of Columbia Code made it illegal to carry an unregistered firearm and prohibited the registration of handguns, though the chief of police could issue 1-year licenses for handguns. The code also contained provisions that required owners of lawfully registered firearms to keep them unloaded and disassembled or bound by a trigger lock or other similar device unless the firearms were located in a place of business or being used for legal recreational activities. So Dick Anthony Heller was a DC special police officer who was authorized to carry a handgun while on duty. He applied for a 1-year license for a handgun he wished to keep at home, but he was denied. So those were the facts of the case. So Mr. Heller. So basically, the law prohibited handguns, and you had to have a special license even to have one at home, which is what our good Mr. Heller was trying to do here. And also, it's weird I can't message you on Reddit, but Reddit does low-key. Don't message me on Reddit if you're trying to reach me. King of the Hunt, if you're on my OnlyFans, that is the best place to message me. My Snapchat, my OnlyFans, 2 best places to message me, but those are paid. If you want to message me somewhere not paid, Instagram is better because I don't have as much of, especially now because my main Instagram was taken down. Reddit, I have like, it's my biggest platform. I have like 1 million followers and everybody there is like horny. So to be honest with you, my moderator goes through all those messages and we only ever reply to messages asking about like Snapchat, etc. Otherwise those get ignored. Do not DM me on Reddit. I won't even see it. And it's just to answer questions about OnlyFans and Snapchat. If you message me on Instagram, I will see it, maybe not right away. And if you message me on OnlyFans and Snap, I will see it the quickest. Now the quickest doesn't mean in 5 minutes. Okay. But you know, and if you're on the Discord, I gotta be better about checking the Discord. I'm gonna put on notifications. I'm gonna be more active on there if you guys are. By the way, I didn't attend your streaming on Tuesday. I was working, but I did see your Twitter post that day and it was nice. Yeah, Tuesday was a bad day to attend the streaming thing because I got food poisoning and had to go throw up. So it just proves that humans are complex. We're all horny, but we also have lives and hobbies outside the bedroom. That's one of the things that I want to like showcase through my online content creation. When people ask me, if I've been posting a lot of the podcast appearances I've been on Instagram, and I'm going to continue to do that because I'm going to be on a lot more. But one of the things I try to do with my platform is I try to be somebody that's like, hey, yeah, we can talk about the Second Amendment and then we can get naked right after and who cares? What's the big deal? And I've had DMs from maybe even some of you here that are like, hey, at first it was kind of weird for me to see you in both lights, but the more you get exposed to it, the more exposure you have to something, the more normal and common it becomes. And I'm trying to normalize sex work and sex in general and not have it be this like really like thing that like scary and people like, that's kind of one of my goals. So the quickest is 3 minutes for how quick I respond. You will hardly ever get a response from me in 3 minutes. Second Amendment and naked. Nice. Yeah, that was going to be the plan on Tuesday. But then I got food poisoning. Today I can't get naked right after, but I will be naked on Saturday if you guys are interested in that. And next Monday. But anyways, those were the facts of the case. So the question, what was the question before the court, King of the Hunt? See, I don't like Oy. Okay, so this is just another little random law school thing. Oyez's questions fucking suck. Quimby always gave you the correct question. Okay, but anyways, the court held that the ban on registering handguns and the requirement to keep guns in the home violated the Second Amendment. Dun, dun, dun. Okay, so why? The why is a big thing because the black letter law that came out of this, basically the court here said that the Second Amendment confers an individual right to possess firearms unrelated to a service in a well-regulated militia, marking the first time the Supreme Court gave a definitive answer on whether the Second Amendment provides an individual right to own and bear arms. So I just want to make this clear for a second. Yeah, it's garbage, but I need to get it for the facts of the case because you didn't provide them to me. Putting this all on you. Yeah, Quimby's the way to go. I don't know who the fuck came up with. You know what also sucks? LexisNexis's case briefs. Like, I know Lexis is like the best place for legal research, but their briefs, are you joking? It wouldn't even get the right. This was in 2008, and that is exactly what I want to emphasize here. So before 2008, we had no indication that the Second Amendment applied to an individual right to bear arms. Not only did we have no indication of that, that wasn't the framers' original intent. That wasn't the original understanding of the Second Amendment. And nothing before 2008 that was coming from the Supreme Court or from pretty much anywhere other than people's own fucking like belief that the Second Amendment should apply to an individual right to bear arms. We had none of that was established. Because the Supreme Court is the highest court of the state, and because of this decision in DC v. Heller, that changes everything. Now the Supreme Court, the almighty Supreme Court, has said, and it has not been overruled, that the Second Amendment does grant individuals the right to bear arms, even though it has nothing to do with a well-regulated militia. So a lot of times when you hear people say, and I think it's a good argument to say that, well, it says well-regulated militia, and you can say it says well-regulated militia, so it shouldn't apply to an individual right to bear arms. I would probably, maybe even agree with you. But it's incorrect technically because the Supreme Court disagrees with you, and the Supreme Court matters more than you and I do. So in response to Washington, D.C.'s ban on all handguns from the city and requirement that all other guns be kept in homes unloaded and disassembled or trigger locked, the court stated that blanket prohibitions on entire categories of guns that could be used for lawful purposes and restrictions that essentially prevented the use of a gun for lawful purposes were not constitutional. So the lawful purposes part, I remember even being confused by that in class. I do remember a lot of class was focused on how the court focused on home. So this is a big theme in law, is areas of the greatest protections and the greatest freedom. So this even applies to the Fourth Amendment search and seizure and everything, whereas your home is considered the place where you have the greatest protection. So you have the greatest protection against unreasonable search and seizure. It's where you have the greatest reasonable expectation of privacy. That's a big thing in, I guess, King of the Hunt's other favorite topic, crim and crim pro. And in a lot of these gun cases, especially this one that had to do with somebody wanting that for their home, the court did emphasize that your home, you should have the most freedom in it too, and you should have the right to defend yourself in home more than anywhere else. So, how do you like Arizona so far? It is hot. Wow, Beauty and Brains is a major turn on. Thank you. I don't think I'm the biggest brainiac right now, but thanks. I literally steal my APs in Lex's Next account when I'm at work. You know what? ChatGPT is going to make Lexus and Westlaw pretty much not usable. We won't not usable, but we won't need it. Imagine all of the new 1Ls who will never have to learn to do legal research, because if we can just pull precedent really quickly off ChatGPT, eventually when it's reliable enough, what the fuck will be the point of Westlaw? It's almost like we need to modernize the wording of the Constitution. Yep. Look at that delicious face. You just want to eat it up. Thank you. It's been through a lot. There's been a lot of projectile vomiting out of it, if that ruins the vibe for you. What? No, I'm sure a document over 200 years old is fine the way to. Not only that, but we should try to make sure that we knew exactly what the people who wrote it in 200 years ago were thinking, and make sure that we try to make our modern world as close to theirs as possible. In fact, we should just all bring back the wigs, everything. That's what I think. What are you insinuating, that archaic language isn't the best thing for all of time? Well, Jasmine, if you live in the north area of Arkansas, then you would enjoy peace and nature there. I'm working on enjoying nature. I'm not a huge nature person by default. And I hate bugs. So there was a little beetle or something crawling on my kitchen floor the other day, and I took a big Sephora box and I dumped it on it, and I'm afraid to pick up the box. I'm sure the bug is dead, but I don't even want to see its dead body. So if you guys want to know a little about me. So again, another thing that I remember was emphasized, that blanket prohibitions on entire categories of guns that could be used for lawful purposes. You guys have to understand how big that is. So any type of gun that can be used for a lawful purpose, such as self-defense, which was considered a lawful purpose, you can't have blanket prohibitions on that kind of weapon. So that makes something like a ban on handguns not probably will not be upheld under this. At this point, Drizzle and I are almost reading each other's minds when putting messages in the chat. I'm unsure we aren't the same person with DID and separate accounts. Well, I hope you're both not suffering from food poisoning, if that's the case. However, so we have a little bit of a however. The court emphasized that the individual right to bear arms was not unlimited and certain forms of federal regulations remain permissible, including prohibiting the possession of firearms by felons and the mentally ill, the possession of firearms in sensitive places such as school and government buildings, and the imposition of conditions on the commercial sale of firearms. Also, I want to emphasize that this only applied to DC at first, and then there was another case which was less significant. Was it Henderson? No, it wasn't Henderson. That basically just made this the case everywhere. So that wasn't that important because it was just expanding Heller. But the big takeaway from Heller is it seems like from that case that you can't have blanket prohibitions on the type on a type of weapon that could be used for lawful purposes, which can be pretty much all encompassing. But it does say that you can prohibit certain kinds of people, certain places, schools, etc., where they are not allowed. So bravo to the Supreme Court for saying that we have that, we can be stopped from bringing guns into schools. Let's give them credit where credit is due. No guns in schools. We're allowed to say you can't have guns in schools. I was saying last time, right before you cut your stream short last time, that we are looking at the Constitution when it was written back then. Certainly the clarity of it needs to be reworked so that it is up to date in today's world. I wholeheartedly agree with that. But that's going to also open a can of worms because this is what we're stuck with. We're stuck with working within the bounds of the Constitution and doing an amendment or changing the Constitution, which will create an uproar. And so the other option is reworking its interpretation to the Supreme Court, which is also heavily embedded in politics. It's just a fucking mess. And it seems like for a long time, we've seen it as the lesser evil between those is to have the Supreme Court kind of change the interpretation of the Constitution rather than to change the Constitution itself. So that's kind of what we're working with. And I don't think it's the best way, but I don't know what the best way would be either. I don't think there is an easy answer that won't open up a can of worms that could potentially be catastrophic even. Wait, I'm perplexed. Should we use guns to keep guns out of school? Well, that's what some people are saying now, right? So this isn't saying you can't bring guns into school. This is saying that you're allowed to pass regulations on having guns in schools, which is very, very kind of them to allow us that right. Supreme Court, guns can't be in schools 20 years later, Trump's. So again, they're not saying guns can't be in schools. They're saying that you can't prevent generally a blanket prohibition on guns, but you can prevent certain types of people, mentally ill, domestic abuse, whatever. A lot of the stuff, I think the Brady bill. So the Brady bill seems like it would work under this. But you can't say that people. So the homes is a huge one, and out in public spaces seems to be. So it seems to be home, public spaces. But then once you get into schools and more sensitive, protected spaces, then it seems like you have the most freedom to regulate this kind of shit. I would say that the court is maybe kind of even saying without so the three kinds of scrutiny that you get in law, King of the Hunt, help me out. Strict scrutiny, intermediate scrutiny, and then rational basis review. Anytime the court is using strict scrutiny, it must be the least invasive means for a compelling government interest. Very hard standard to meet, and that's what they're going to uphold in those cases that they think apply to places like the home where you have the most freedom, the most privacy, etc. And a lot of laws that they look at with strict scrutiny are pretty much going to be taken down. And then anything rational basis review is the easiest to pass, which a rational basis review, it just needs to be a government interest. It doesn't need to be the least I'm actually going to look up exactly, because I like almost have it memorized because this was just so embedded in us, but it's like compelling government interest with the least restrictive means. And then rational basis review is just a legitimate, that's the word, legitimate government interest that doesn't, I guess, embark on another or doesn't restrict other freedoms too much, which is very easy to pass. So I think they would look at a regulation about putting guns in schools. And if a state was like, you can't bring guns to schools, they would look at it with rational basis review and it would be upheld. Whereas anything about preventing guns in homes is going to be very hard for them to accept. Basically, the government doesn't give a fuck about rational. Yeah. That is the consensus here. Okay. So next big case. This was another huge one. McDonald v. Chicago. Which was, yeah, this was, okay, there we go. This is the one that piggybacked off of Heller, and shortly after the Heller decision, the Supreme Court ruled that the right to keep and bear arms extended to the individuals in each of the 50 U.S. states. The court ruled that the Second Amendment was incorporated by due process section of the 14th Amendment, and individuals were therefore granted a constitutional right to keep firearms in their home for self-protection. This right, the court stated, was greater than the state's power to restrict it. Similar to its holding in Heller, the Supreme Court held that the state and federal laws prohibiting possession of firearms by felons and mentally ill and the possession of firearms inside public schools were constitutional. I thought McDonald did something else too, because McDonald was a big case, and I feel like we wouldn't have spent that much time on it if it was just the same thing. But I'm gonna look at that really quick. McDonald sounds so gross to me, you guys, right now. Disgusting. Was that really it? No, maybe like the actual case itself like went into something that my con law professor was like really into. So Alito, writing for the majority, the court reasoned that the rights are fundamental to the nation's scheme of ordered liberty that are deeply rooted in the nation's history and tradition. I hate deeply rooted in the nation. Anytime I see that, I'm upset. Are appropriately applied to the states through the 14th Amendment. So the 14th Amendment is what they use to incorporate the Second Amendment to all the states. So it is a very important case, but for some reason, I thought it gave us a little bit more insight into how the court thinks the Second Amendment should be interpreted rather than just that it applies to all the other states. Okay, the court recognized in Heller that the right to self-defense was such fundamental and deeply rooted right. The court reasoned that because of its holding in Heller, the Second Amendment applied to the states. Okay, so again, specified that this is due process. We had Scalia concurring. All right. I think it just really solidified that this is a fundamental right. So now, as of 2010, honestly, so it's not even 2008. 2008 was when the court agreed that you have a right to bear arms. It was actually in 2010, which was only 12 years ago, that I guess the court randomly decided that it's actually been deeply rooted in our history and tradition, even though it only kind of became a thing in 2010 in this sense, that you have a right to bear arms. Just a self-protection is actually what you have a right to, even though the Second Amendment doesn't say anything about self-protection. The Second Amendment actually specifically states well-regulated militia, no indication of self-defense. And I think if that was the case, then it would either not say well-regulated militia, and it would just keep the right to bear arms part, which a lot of gun activists like to just quote individually, like we talked about last time. Almost the fact that it says well-regulated militia makes it seem like, what's that principle? There's a principle when if something specifies something, it almost implies the exclusion of other things. I forgot what it is, but somebody, if you know it, tell me what it is. But when you're learning how to interpret text, that's one of the interpretive tools that you use. Like if something says, hey, because of XYZ, you can do X, you can do A, then you assume that the purpose of A is XYZ because it says, you know what I'm saying? So I don't know. I'm not saying I disagree with an individual's right to bear arms. I'm not saying that self-defense isn't a valid reason, obviously, for somebody to want to have the right to bear arms. But it's just interesting that people act like it's this just fundamental right and it was just the framers' intent, and none of that is true. It wasn't a fundamental right, besides outside of the purpose of a well-regulated militia. It wasn't the intent of the amendment, and it wasn't even what the Supreme Court said was the intent of the amendment until actually very recently. So interesting stuff there. Okay, wait, let me see. Let's see. I don't know if we wish to have a gun-free zone on a college campus during an event in Texas. There's specific documentation that needs to be completed and approved before it can be declared a gun-free zone, and it requires specific signage to be placed. Yeah, Texas, I don't know what y'all got going on in Texas. Arizona, I'm not used to this because I come from the West Coast where, like, I had never seen, like, a sign that said no guns, like, to go into places. But in Arizona, you see the, like, no gun sign when you're, like, going into a restaurant and you're like, oh. So, but I'm sure it's nothing like Texas. All right, Cat Covey Brittany. What's that? See if it jogs my memory. There's going to be random cases you will always remember. My torts one. What's the one where the train guy? Always remember the train guy. Oh my God, is Quimby going to let me see this? Or it's going to make me subscribe? Yep. It's going to. If you have Quimby, King of the Hunt, if you have Quimby, get me the case you just talked about. Or talk about it here. But it's actually from the Supreme Court of Iowa. It's not our actual Supreme Court. Why does McDonald's sound gross to you? Because I'm recovering from food poisoning. So a lot of things sound gross to me that wouldn't otherwise sound gross to me. I know, by the way, help update Clinging to Life with Gatorade, Cheez-Its, and beefy jerky teriyaki bites. The fact that you're here, we appreciate it. You're a damn warrior. True American patriot here trying to figure out the Second Amendment with us. In all fairness, I hate hospitals. I will do 100 other things first. I haven't been to a hospital very much, but I actually like hospitals because I want drugs. When I'm in pain, I'm like, whoo, give it to me. This bra is like digging into my, so I don't like wearing bras. Cannot wait till this is, and usually I get to take my clothes off for you guys on live, but today it's just gonna be me. Oh, the train and fireworks one. Yeah, it starts with a P for some reason. And I said it stayed with me but like for some reason right now I cannot. Paul's graph. That one. What other big ones? The longer you are away from law school, the more at least the names will start fading. And then as soon as you like see something, you'll like remember. Where the clock fell on the woman. Yeah. My torts teacher really was about that case. AZ is open carry, right? I'm not actually 100% sure. I haven't looked into the laws of AZ, like gun laws, but I wouldn't be surprised. Yes, Paz graph. That's what it was. When people made fun of your boyfriend, how did you? Oh, okay. So he's not my boyfriend. I think you're talking about on Reddit. I posted a little clip from my sex tape. I think I told you guys this last time, and people were really upset that he's not like a Chad. I wasn't upset that people were making. I don't even care about him, although we did have a good laugh about it. But I'm just concerned about, so one thing I've been like, and I was talking about this with him and my friend and even Hazard Stint, who's not here tonight, but it seems like it's very different than mainstream porn, in the sense that in mainstream porn, when you guys see an actress and an actor, you guys assume it's an actress and an actor, and you don't have like feelings of jealousy, it seems, or anything like that. When it's us, when it's OnlyFans girls, because we have more of like a personal connection with you guys see us as real people, you don't see us as actresses. Even when I would post clips of like BG scenes where you couldn't see the guy, the majority of the comments would be like, he's so lucky. Like some of them would be a little bit, it seemed like a lot of people were focused on his access to the sex in addition to enjoying the scene, or perhaps sometimes that would get in the way of enjoying the scene. So interestingly, and the guy in my videos, he sent me this clip of of Steve Harvey talking about the difference between a movie star and a TV star, because when he goes out with Denzel, the way that they treat Denzel versus him, and we were laughing over it because basically the analogy is that we're like TV stars and not movie stars, like porn stars are. So people feel like they know us, they have a connection with us, and so that's been kind of interesting to unpack from like a psychology standpoint, seeing how many people feel some sort of way about my partner. And like, you know, because I'm like, I would have thought that people wouldn't really care, although it's not surprising, especially considering a lot of the comments I would get before that, I was like, okay, sure, he's lucky, but like enjoy the sex. And so the comments have been mixed. Some people really like that it's a average looking guy. And some people, for some reason, that angers them. And that's been interesting. I do want to do a stream on soon about the red pill again. I think I've done like similar streams in the past, but I do want to talk about it because one, I'm going to go on that dumbass fucking podcast, the whatever podcast, in like a couple weeks. And so I'm going to be having to think about it a lot because they're all big advocates of the like alpha ebook training committee. But I'm going to look at the comments in a second, but because I'm going to have to focus on, and I do think it's like an issue, and obviously I'm confronted with it more than the general population because of what I do on the internet. I get a lot of comments from red-pilled people, incels. It's always interesting to me to step out of my bubble and talk to other people with like my lawyer friends. I was sitting at a table with like 8 or 9 lawyers. I think I said this, and I brought up Red Pill and Andrew Tate. None of them knew who he was. Like they had never heard of him. One of them said she had a cousin. Her cousin knew of him. Like it was so far removed. So it's like we are in this bubble. But at the same time, I think it's like it's becoming a thing, and it's been a thing. I mean, and sometimes when it's extreme, it leads to real instances of violence. Elliot Rogers, a big one. If you guys ever want to like freak the fuck out and creep yourselves out, go to incels.co, or no, incels.me or incels.co. I don't know. One of them was, or incels.is. One of those. It keeps changing because the government shuts it down because people are crazy. And look at the kind of fucking psychotic shit that goes on in those forums. Again, I don't know how big of a group they are, but what's interesting to me is something that started out very radical, like this radical, crazy group, some of which are on board with mass shootings and just they're black-pilled. But then what came out of that black-pilled world, these words like Chad, incel, beta, simp, is now kind of bled out into the red-pilled world. And the red-pilled world is a little bit bigger. And then a little bit of the red-pilled world is coming out into kind of like mainstream world. And people are using these words, using these terms, using this rhetoric that originated with these psychos. And it's kind of coming out with people like Andrew Tate into, I would say, somewhat of the mainstream, which is really concerning. And there aren't a lot of female voices that are combating this. So there's not even a lot of male voices that are combating this. I think Destiny is somebody that they have brought on before that does a good job. Hassan, I think, I don't think he's ever been on that one specifically, but I don't think there's any women like, at least that I know of. There probably is, and if there is, I'm sorry. And if I can do that, I would like to do that, especially when it comes to young and impressionable men. Like, I will say some of my responses in that comment section, I got messages on Instagram and even in one of the comments itself that was like, hey, like, these are interesting to read and I'm changing my mind on things. So don't underestimate like how even people looking at comment exchanges or hearing people combat this rhetoric, because a lot of this rhetoric continues because it dominates in spaces where they're not getting adequate pushback and adequate criticism. And so it's able to grow and to foster. But when somebody comes in and they're able to push back and it makes more sense, then those people who are prone to critical thinking, maybe just haven't been exposed to it yet, will hear this and be like, that argument actually is better than this argument. So it works. So I would even implore you guys, when you see that kind of stuff online, say something. You guys are all smarter than those people. And if somebody's reading it, a lot of people are like, oh, it's not worth my time. It's not worth my time. It may not be worth your time, but I think it's worth all of our time to not have a society where more and more people are being radicalized in this way. Okay. Let me go up a little bit. I know it's not a Supreme Court case. It's interesting because where right to protect self/property begin and end. Okay. Because when I've done research before that if you try a fruit salad or at least a day, you will feel much better. Well, let's give that to King of the Hunt because he's the one suffering now. It might make fun of him, but he's still winning more than any of them. You guys want to know something really funny? I'll tell you guys. This guy is actually like fairly like, he's not like super like famous or anything, but he's like successful enough that I'm curious, because if people knew that, I don't know if their whole tone would change. Like, I think that's the thing. There's no way to really win, because if you fuck like a Chad, then they're like, oh, this is what they want. This is what they all want. You don't want somebody who's not like with the 6-pack, fuck girls. But then it seems like if you fuck somebody regular, then they're mad. They're mad. They're like, oh, what the fuck? Why are you fucking him? There's no way to win, because the key is that you're not fucking them. And in one sense, it's like, at least if it fits their narrative that women suck and they only go for XYZ, then it's better than if they actually go for regular people, but it's just not them. And I'm curious, because obviously I'm not going to say any of that or give, because the person doesn't want to be, he doesn't want people to know he's in it, mostly because of his job and how it could affect potential opportunities for him. But I'm curious, because I'm like, I don't know how that would change perception a little bit, but I don't know. OF ladies equals so much heat. So the guy you had sex with is OnlyFans sex worker? No, he is definitely not OnlyFans sex worker. He has a very different job. Off topic. I love your content. Thank you. Could have gave that old man a heart attack. No, he is fine. He has sex with a lot, I'm sure, of lovely, beautiful women, a lot younger than him, actually. Damn, you have a big audience on Twitch? Really? Are there a lot of people in here? I don't know. You will need a serious intellectual refresh after that. I know. Oh, I was trying to, because when I knew that I was going to be on, like potentially going to be on it, I watched some of their clips. I even sent some to my moderator, and like at the time I was listening to it, like getting fired up, and then the next day I just like picked up where's like a regular book somewhere, and I was like, oh, like it just felt like I was back to earth, because I'm gonna memorize the Constitution. I'm gonna memorize the most complex book ever after that. Like, I'm gonna 100% need that. But I think it's important for me to be for people like us to be on there. And it's exposure. So not gonna lie, that's definitely part of it. I'm generally curious why you're interested in being part of that podcast, because you guys have no idea the amount of people that listen to that send me rhetoric that comes from that believe the stuff that they say, because there is no person pushing back on this. And there are even women, young women, who listen to this and think that, oh, this is important. My body count's important. This is important. Like, and if I can change one person's mind, because that podcast unfortunately has a big audience, if I can change one person's mind, then I think it's worth it. The fact I was gonna not do it until I heard that it's actually live. So they can't actually, because I was like curious about it, and I was like, maybe I should do it, maybe I shouldn't do it. I don't know how they're gonna cut it. So I was on the fence. And then when I heard that the whole it's a 5-hour podcast, the whole 5 hours is just put out there, I'm like, okay, that means people can really hear what I have to say. So that's why I want to do it. I don't even know if it's a good idea, but I'm going to do it because I think there are some points that need to be made on that then the audience that is willing to listen to it can listen to it. Because if you go on that page and you look at the comments and you see what those people are saying and the kind of bullshit they're spewing, and I'm not going to change their minds, but I could change somebody's mind who's reading it or who's listening to it, or a girl who's listening to it who thinks that this is the kind of man that she needs, this is what men want, and it's not. I don't know. What do you guys think about it though? You guys... Still kills me that a woman coined and first self-identified as an incel. Now it's an all angry misogynistic men. Yeah, very angry. I would say that. I would think it's about confronting the problematic thought process to their own audience. Yes. And one thing that kind of made me turn on it was like I would see like Destiny recommendations on my thing, and I only followed him starting when he was doing the vaccine stuff a little bit, because I thought he was making good arguments about that. But and I would read the comments on his videos, and it would be men that are like, you saved me from this. They're like, you saved me from this. I was going down this path, listening to you save me from this. So I'm like, okay, if I can save one person, it's worth it. And I know there's going to be parts where I'm going to look stupid. That's okay. Yes, but knowing how those streams go, they will attempt to cut her off, twist her words, etc., because she will spit facts that are not on brand for them. Yeah, they could easily kick me out, in which case that's cool. And I will do my own video on that and what happened and everything. But the fact that they play that whole 5 hours and that's up there, as far as I know, that's there. And then they take their stupid little clips and they put it on their page, and it's like, it's just like blah 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 schools, OnlyFans girl trigger. Like, they're gonna do that to me 100%, but that's okay, because if you watch it and you see the whole thing, and I will clip the whole thing too, or parts of it that, you know, which I think I'm allowed to do. I don't know. I've seen other people do it that have been on it. I can do that. And even if people just watch it and they hear about me and a girl who did OnlyFans, is a lawyer and now does OnlyFans, that piques people's interest, and they come to the same kind of content that you guys have come to, my YouTube videos, these discussions, etc., and they start watching my stuff, and they maybe start hearing a different perspective through that, even if I didn't change their mind through the podcast, or they thought I was stupid on the podcast or whatever, you know, just one person mind needs to be changed. Interesting. I can understand the envy viewers would have watching you perform, but as long as all parties are consenting adults and I'm enjoying the content, just be horny and have fun. Yeah, that's my take too. Destiny is known for letting his wife have sex with other men. Okay. I have no idea about Destiny's personal sex life, but what's the problem with that if everyone's happy in that relationship, Mr. Sloppy Big Balls? My main thing I want to emphasize, because I think the main problem with the red pill ideology is that they pretend that they need to push their ideology out on everyone, and what works for them needs to work for everybody. So it's very simple stuff that I want to combat there, which is their absolutes, and them pretending that there's one way to live your life and that that's the only way to do it. Agreed, but there is a small part of the audience that can be reached, and Jazz is the type to open them up. Plus, all other guys that won't listen will sub to the OnlyFans, so they will. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, that's not my main thing, but y'all need to know how much the haters, all of the people that call you guys simps in the comments, all of them are subscribed to my OnlyFans. I don't like to speak in absolutes, but a vast majority, I can say. Yeah, so I think it's going to be June 4th from what I'm hearing. I'm just there on OF to express my sexual side similar to other ladies OF content creators. I have seen BDSM on Twitter where a man submits himself to the madam and the content is hardcore, but it's not my thing. Okay, thank you for sharing. Is your hair naturally wavy or straight? This is my natural hair. It's actually, my natural hair is actually a little curlier. This was like slept on, but my natural hair is not straight. No, it's actually used to be pretty curly. And then I put a lot of relaxing stuff in it over the years when I was younger because I was dumb and I wanted straight hair. And now my curls aren't as pretty, honestly, as they used to be. Oof, are you going to be there the whole 5 hours? Yes. And I have to go to Santa Barbara. I am going to bring my friend, though. I'm like, I will fly you there because they asked if I want to bring anybody on. She's another of, it's Lana. And so I'm like, we'll get a hotel together. We'll like eat before and we'll like go be miserable and hopefully spew some facts and then go on our merry way. I will say I wouldn't be surprised after you lure them and destroy their arguments, they'll ask you to leave so they can twist it without pushback. Well, I know they've had people leave before. And again, the full 5 hours is live because it looks like from what I've seen that people can ask live questions. Like people pay like $200. It's like $100, $200. It's like crazy to me to ask the dumbest questions I've literally ever like the whole thing is really juvenile for me. And it's like the sound effects and everything. Like if you guys see my face when I'm there, I'm probably just going to be like, it's going to be really odd for me to be in that space after, getting through law school and like being in those kind of academic settings to this. But I don't want to not go because I'm like afraid of that. Cause part of me it's like, okay, do I want to be ganged up on by a bunch of people? No. But if that's what I need to do in order to get my point across, then I don't want to let it stop me. You could make TikTok and YouTube shorts reacting to your appearance on the podcast while driving. But yeah, I plan on doing that. I remember subbing to an OS female, not realizing she was in my, okay. Thank you for sharing your OF experience. Sometimes I don't like it when some other content creators take your OnlyFans videos and make it yours, Jasmine. Who's doing that? For you to attempt to change people's minds for a net positive outcome towards equality between the sexes earns my deepest respect. Yeah, a lot of the stuff that they say is just it. No critical thinking skills at all. So if I can get a word in, which they do seem like they let people talk, which seems to be a little bit different than the clips I've seen from Fresh and Fit, where they just like jump in and they just talk over you. It seems like you have time on the mic. As long as I have time on the mic and I don't get, you guys know though, I get into like word salad. That's something I want to work on. And this could be an opportunity to practice. Although I wish like I could practice somewhere a little bit less combative at first, but I don't have, I'm a better writer. So if you guys see, I like spit in my comments. Like I'm like, pow, pow, pow. But articulating my points sometimes is hard because the words come into my head quicker and the words in my head are a lot more sophisticated than the words that I actually use in my vocabulary. So the two get like I should just say things simpler, but even now I'm like the two get, and my brain's like conjoined, blah, blah, blah. And I should just say the two get mixed up. And I need to just go with the simplest word than the words that are in my brain. And that's something I need to work on, but I don't think I'm going to fix it in 2 weeks. So expect some of that too. But back to the Second Amendment, I know. So an interesting side to look at. Okay, I want to read off some research. I'm definitely going to see that podcast because Jasmine's going to be there. Yeah, be prepared for the kind of comments you see. It's like the incel haven. It is. It like literally makes me. It was after watching some of that stuff. I'm gonna admit, like, I'm going to try to just not pay attention to it until it gets closer to the date because it genuinely makes me like nauseous. Like, and I'm not just saying that. Like it's like makes me sick a little bit. It's like times where I've been really interested or focused on like extreme depravity. And there's times you need to study that. Like you need to study the Holocaust. You need to study slavery. You need to study even like just any kind of radicalization, child soldiers, ISIS, anything. Then I really spend a lot of time looking into it. I do feel a little bit sick to my stomach. like the next day or later while it's like marinating with me, and I get the same feeling from watching this content. So the fact that I'm about to go on it is like kind of hard for me, but I kind of explain the reasons I want to do it. Where can we listen to this podcast? When it comes out, I will post it on my socials. As meaning when I was on Reddit browsing other things, I've seen a group piece, a couple of videos yours. Yeah, those are videos that I probably posted and they stitched together. Okay, now we're talking about I guess different countries and what they do with guns. But I want to get to my moderator's research because he did do a good job of getting a lot of that. So I want to make sure that we talk about that. And he does go into comparing it to other countries. So we're going to start off with some gun violence stats. 2021, sorry, my best friend's calling me. 2021 was the most recent year for complete data on gun deaths in America. More deaths by gun-related injury than any other year on record. There were 48,830 deaths total. 54% were suicides. 55% of all suicides involved a gun, highest percent since 2001. So I guess before that, less. Oh, who's trying to FaceTime me? Get off my screen. Okay, I don't even know how to use this. Okay, I'm gonna X that. Okay. 43% were murders. 81% of all murders involved a gun, highest percent since CDC began online records in 1968. 3% were either accidental, involved law enforcement, or unknown circumstances. There was a 23% increase in total gun deaths since 2019. Gun murders increased 45% between 2019 and 2021, and gun suicides increased 10% in the same period. So, I mean, the big thing that happened, because the next part says, while total fatalities increased, the rate of gun deaths is below it has been in the past decades. Per capita gun murder rates have decreased. So the 14.6 per 100,000 in 2021 is the highest rate since early 90s. So what do you guys think? COVID? I don't know what podcast you're talking to because I like to watch. Yeah, if you don't know what I'm talking about, welcome to the club, because I heard about this like 2 weeks ago. And it is quite literally whatever you're imagining, it's 10 times worse. FaceTime Jazz while he's on a Twitch stream. I know. But yeah, what do you guys think? COVID? Because those are some staggering numbers. So the peak was 16.3 per 100,000 in 1974. States with the highest rate of gun-related deaths in 2021 include number 1, Mississippi, number 2, Louisiana, number 3, New Mexico, number 4, Alabama, number 5, Wyoming. State with the lowest rates of gun deaths in 2021 include Massachusetts, Hawaii, New Jersey, New York, and Rhode Island. How do these rates compare to other countries? 2018 study of 195 countries and territories showed that U.S. has a much higher gun rate than other nations, but is still well below several Latin American countries, which includes El Salvador, Venezuela, Guatemala, Colombia, Honduras, and Brazil. Most of these countries have been affected by either U.S. business interests, essentially colonizing them, or U.S. government. This is my moderator's commentary. This was not mentioned in the wherever these stats are from. Most of these countries have been affected, but this is still true. Affected by either U.S. business interests, essentially colonizing them, or U.S. government interests toppling socialist governments during the Cold War era. But when comparing to other developed nations, the U.S. has far greater deaths. In 2016, gun rates were as follows. So U.S. is 10.6 per 100,000. Next one already goes to France which is 2.7. So that's a big drop, 10.6 to 2.7. And then we have Canada, Australia, which is Canada 2.1, Australia 1, Germany 0.9, Spain 0.6. Let's see what COVID has a hand in a lot of things. I wouldn't take it away from that statistic either. Yeah, neither would I. I think COVID plays a part in the numbers now. Yeah, I mean, that is the big thing that seems like if this is 2021's numbers and you're comparing it to 2019 and we're seeing this jump, what happened in between 2019 and 2021? That was like a major thing. COVID. Remember the toilet paper wars? I wouldn't be surprised if someone was shot for some butt wipes. Yeah, guys, I didn't get the toilet. Like, worst case scenario, you can use like napkins. Like, I just was so confused by that. Okay, deaths in mass shootings. No agreed upon definition of mass shooting. FBI tracks and defines active shooter incidents as one or more individuals actively engage in killing or attempting to kill people in a populated area. By this definition, there were 103 deaths in 2021. Gun Violence Archives defines mass shootings as incidents in which 4 or more people are shot, even if no one was killed, excluding the shooters. By this definition, there were 706 deaths in 2021. The frequency of mass shootings increased drastically. In 2000, there were 3 active shooter incidents as defined by the FBI. In 2021, there were 61 incidents. While most legislation is geared toward banning assault weapons, they were only involved in 3% of gun murders in 2020. Handguns were involved in 59% of murders. I'm going to reiterate this. Oh, wait, what? I wonder how those gun death rates per capita between states with less gun ownership rates versus states with higher gun ownership rates measure up. I know, I feel like I've seen videos on this, but when a bunch of numbers are thrown out at me, I don't like retain them past like very like time that's like in short proximity to when I heard them. I'm just going to reiterate this point. You're right, but there's another aspect to look at. With Switzerland is their monoethnicity and ethnicity. There is less cultural divide, and I hope to that end less, let's say, reason to perpetuate violence because economically and socially everything is much the same. There was also the George Floyd protests that were worldwide during 2022. Agree that is an important factor to take into consideration and why we can't look at it as an apple to apple comparison. Lawyers don't law school to number. Yeah. Don't hit me with numbers ever. Ever. So then we have some stats from amnesty.org. More than 500 people die every day from gun violence. 44% of homicides globally involve gun violence. 1.4 million firearm-related deaths globally between 2012 and 2016. In the U.S., 134,000 people were shot and injured by firearms in 2017. These cause not only physical injury, but mental as well. Through PTSD, gun violence paired with a lack of accessible healthcare is a recipe for disaster. Not surprising. Globally, 8 million new small arms and up to 15 billion rounds of ammunition are produced each year. This is worth an estimated $8.5 billion a year. Link between discrimination of gun violence in USA. In 2017, 14,542 people died by gun homicides. Black people made up 58.5% of those deaths, despite making up 13% of the population. Black men aged 15 to 34 were 10 times more likely to die from gun homicide than white men. The number of gun-related deaths of children continues to increase every year. Between 2 to 7% of all injuries treated in the U.S. Our pediatric trauma centers are gun-related. That really makes me sad. Homicide is the second leading cause of death among Black children. So, no fun there. Hi, OBS 93. Okay, so this next part, a lot of this is stuff we went over. So when it comes to gun ownership, we knock it out the park. The following are summaries of gun control laws and other gun ownership and then gun control laws. Okay. The chart is gun ownership. That's what I was thinking. So civilian-owned guns per 100 people. gun homicides per 100,000 people. So if you guys, I'm just going to show you a little bit because I think you can, if I just show you. So the top is United States. And then we got Canada, Australia, Norway, Israel, United Kingdom, and Japan. So as you guys can see, we like our guns. It's our God-given right. And yeah, there are people who think that. I am not a Bible expert, but from my knowledge, and nobody really cares. Part of the point of our country was that your God-given rights are not your rights here. After my methods and techniques of social research, I'm skeptical about some research because sometimes stats hyper-focus on race. That is true. Stats are always stats and studies. You always got to look at them and look at them again and look at them again. And that's why even when it comes to studies, like look for stuff that's been pretty established through multiple studies, multiple methodologies, etc. Okay, now someone else is calling me. I probably have to get off somewhat soon. I had that promo going on my OnlyFans, and I have to go get everybody what they asked for. So, looking at some of the laws in other countries. So we're going to compare some of those. And bye-bye. Okay. Canada, relatively high gun ownership, 35 guns per 100 residents, 28-day waiting period for gun purchases, mandatory safety training courses, detailed background checks, bans on large capacity magazines, bans on military-style guns and ammo, guns must be registered, buyers must have a license to purchase. So that's some of the stuff that Canada requires. What's your opinion on owning more than 10 firearms? Yeah, I'd be okay if people didn't own more than 10 firearms personally. Israel, military service is required for all citizens, so guns are part of everyday life. Most entering military service must be psychologically screened and have weapons training. Military weapons ban. National gun registry with a limit of 1 gun per owner. License are required. Must be an Israeli citizen, speak some Hebrew, pass a health screening, and show a genuine reason for needing a gun. In the UK, they have the Firearms Act, expanded list of banned weapons to include certain semi-auto rifles, increased registration requirements, mass shooting of 16 children in 1996 prompted the Snowdrop petition, which drove legislation banning guns. So all they needed was, like, I guess, one thing where children were slaughtered. We are clearly not there as a society. Government did a temporary gun buyback, took tens of thousands of illegal/unwanted guns out of supply. Most cops in the UK don't carry guns, only carried by specially trained units. Norway, most police do not carry guns. Very little gun restrictions until 2018 when the banned semi-automatic firearms. That's in Norway. Did I say that? Norway, most police do not carry guns. Very little gun restrictions until 2018 when the banned semi-automatic firearms. They banned. I was like, the banned. Can't believe you had a typo. I'm just kidding. Only one mass shooting. They are marked 14th in worldwide gun ownership. Japan, firearms and sword law. Sword law, okay. Only shotguns, air guns, guns with specific research or industrial purposes, and guns used for competition are allowed. To get them, buyer must obtain formal instruction and pass many written, mental, and drug tests, as well as a rigorous background check. Owners must inform police, government about how their weapons and ammo is stored and provide them for annual inspection. Most years, less than 100 people die from gun violence in a country of 125 million. Sorry. That's a lot for me. Yeah, so I think if looking at racial breakdown, it's also important to look at socioeconomic status as well to compare these groups, regardless of race. You know where else it's important to look at socioeconomic status? When the fucking right wing and the red-pilled alpha bros are like, oh my God, children from single parent households. We did an episode on that. When you measure for socioeconomic status, not saying single parent households are like, ideal, but it mostly has to do with that more so than having a 2-parent nuclear household, which seems to be the end all be all for some people in our country. But anyways, I digress. We'll have fun on your promo, Jasmine. I'll see your next switch on Monday. Thank you. Gun ownership is my God-given right from a 200-year secular document written by majority deists, but interpreted by majority Christian politicians. America, the melting pot. I love that comment. Jasmine, what the fuck, Azizam? Azizam means my dear in Persian. Okay. So I don't have a lot of time, but I want everyone to write if you want. You don't have to. If you could right now pass legislation in America as it pertains to guns within the bounds of what you think would be constitutional, according to what we heard in Heller and McDonald, which is our precedent right now, what would you do? Guns should be banned. Well, like all guns, like what do you mean? Let's hear it. La di da di da. Moderator, you can also. I'm actually curious what you think. Oh, I didn't. Did I send you the links today? Holy shit, I didn't, huh? Let me do that while I'm waiting for someone to speak. Do you guys have teachers? You know when nobody volunteers and the teachers go, "Don't all jump at once." I feel like they all do that. I'm like, it's just not hitting. Instead of guns, sell knives, fight like real men. Okay, yeah, okay, but this is about oh my gosh, I think passing a law limiting the possible fire rate of weapons would get by the Supreme Court. Maybe not this Supreme Court, but yeah, I would say that is within, because a right to self-defense seems to be the overarching theme of the Second Amendment now versus before, when it was a right to a well-regulated militia. And so I think that is completely within the bounds of the Second Amendment. I had the links for you, moderator, but I just didn't send them, so I'm doing that now. Well, I would put regulations as mandatory 3-month wait period, background checks from the purchaser's past, and put serial numbers on every bullet to trace where they came from. Wasn't there just, I saw one article about it. Was it a Supreme Court case, or was some kind of court case where the Supreme Court struck down, moderator, do some quick research on this, or someone, 18, there was a ban on anyone under 21, I think, from buying a handgun in some state, and the Supreme Court knocked it down, saying that you can't regulate based on age, and that is not consistent with the Constitution and our nation's deeply rooted history and like that fucking line kills me. It's like, do you not know that our nation's history and tradition has been filled with like embarrassing fucking bullshit? Like, is that what really we want to do? Like, do you not know about our history and tradition? Like, I don't know. Some of that, like racism, sexism, a lot of bullshit has been deeply rooted in our nation's history and tradition. I mean, but who am I? All right, moderators, take my ban all assault weapons, vastly expand background checks, mental emotional assessment, mandatory wait period, implement gun buyback programs to remove illegal guns, national registry, basically all the stuff that other countries do as standard. 100% agree with that. And I think that should be all good under the Supreme Court. But I thought the banning 18-year-olds from buying handguns was crazy. I would have to be very particular in my wording, but guns over a certain size / magazine are banned, along with what Drizzle said, fire rate as well. Also, hold gun manufacturers accountable, tax them per mass shooting death until it stops. Nothing makes companies fix problems faster than cutting money. So you're saying that we should pass legislation that would tax them per mass shooting death. Would that wonder about that one. I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts. And somebody look up the case that I was just talking about. I'm trying to send something over to my moderator that I owed him. many moons ago. That wouldn't hold up in court, sadly. Yeah, that's the problem. If companies are considered people, manufacturers should be able to be sued for the deaths of their weapon. Pie in the sky, but what Knowing Better mentioned in his video, registering all firearms like we do cars would help track weapons being stolen and used in crimes. So, do you think that that is still a viable solution now, considering how many firearms are just out and about? I don't know why the fuck I have Jingle Bell stuck in my head right now. I have no idea. But my brain is just like Jingle Bells. Food poisoning has made me mushy. No, would get major pushback, but one could cope. Hope. Yeah. I think what my moderator said in Drizzle and King of the Hunt, a lot of the stuff you guys are saying, not only would I think be practical, doable, constitutional, but it's supported by most of us here in the country. And so the fact that it's not happening is kind of crazy. Naughty Elf stream, maybe around December. All right, guys, I know that some of this stuff takes like a while to type, so I'm going to give you guys a few more minutes for anything else anybody wants to add on. And then we will reconvene next week. If you have a particular, I haven't decided on a topic. There's a lot of topics, like I said, I know I want to do, but I don't know exactly what I want to do for exactly next week. Talk about nude beaches. I don't think that's a complex and interesting topic enough for everyone. For next week, Clarence Thomas and judicial ethics. That is definitely one on the top of my list. So let's probably do that one tomorrow. It's less of cutting a snake off at the head and more like a hydra. So it's really how do you tie them up together to keep them moving? Yes. Okay. So it looks like the judicial ethics stuff is popular. All right. So that will be next week. You guys are free, those of you in the Discord, to continue talking about this in the Discord if you guys want, and I will be there too. A big problem we face today is the easy creation of gun parts and bullets makes it unrealistic to regulate. So what would you do about that? Is there anything we can do about that? Ban lobbying, ban politicians from owning stock during in office, 24-hour surveillance, etc. Mo is like going in. Mo is like coming and swinging. And I don't think he sounds crazy at all. We need guns at this point, but we don't need all guns. I agree. Let's end with this. We need guns, but we don't need all guns, and we don't need unfeathered access to guns. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Sorry about Tuesday. I really, really appreciate you guys coming back today and keeping track of when I was going to be on again. You don't know how much that means to me. And you guys are absolutely the best. I appreciate your support more than you know. You guys make this such a fun job for me, such a meaningful job for me. I love what I do because of you guys. And I get your messages all the time. I know a lot of you are my OnlyFans, even those of you that aren't on my OnlyFans. You guys are absolutely the best. If I ever do blow up, you guys are always going to be my day ones. I truly, truly, truly love you guys. And hopefully you guys want to come back next week and we can keep this going. Thank you. Love you guys. All right. Bye.